All right, let's welcome in our friend Hunt Palmer. He does radio from 1 to 3, 104.5 Baton Rouge, also does pre- and post games for LSU. Hunt, appreciate you making some time for us this morning. A lot of our fans, unfortunately, know the name Harold Perkins because he single-handedly wrecked the game 2 years ago in Fayetteville. Unfortunately for Harold, he's out for the season. I'm curious to see if he ends up coming back to Baton Rouge for another year, if he moves on to the NFL. But LSU's got a lot more pass rushers than just him. Kind of go over some of the guys that Arkansas is going to have to deal with tomorrow night in Fayetteville.
Sure. Harold obviously had that huge game up in Arkansas, and I think and he was great against Alabama as well that year against Bryce Young. But after that, for a year and a half, LSU really struggled with kind of how to use him. But they found some guys who can really get after the passer. Braden Swenson has been an absolute terror all year. He's got 7 sacks already. The LSU record is 12, and he's very much going to threaten that this year. He was probably LSU's best pass rusher last year. They just didn't play him very much, which is one of the infinite questions on the defense last year for LSU. But he's been great this year getting after the passer off of the edge. Davion Jones, another guy who is down about 15, 20 pounds from last year where he's probably playing a little bit too heavy, and he's been good rushing the passer as well. They've got a young sophomore in Deshaun Womack, who was a 5-star recruit who can get some pressure off the edge. And they've actually dialed up some looks with interior linebackers, getting some pressure. And Whit Weeks had 16 tackles last week, and one of them was a sack. So it's not a dominant defense. It's not one of the elite defenses of LSU's past for certain. But they are disruptive, and they create a lot of negative plays in the backfield, and the pass rush is a big part of that.
When you look at the SEC injury report, Arkansas's always got 2 names on the list. LSU's got several guys that are out for the season. How much of an impact from a health standpoint do you think that factors in with Arkansas coming off the bye heading into tomorrow night?
Yeah, we may have seen it last week for LSU coming off a bye. It was Ole Miss's 7th straight game, and the Tigers kind of dominated the second half of that game. Trey Harris, Ole Miss's All-American receiver, didn't play in the second half of that game. He had been dealing with an injury and couldn't continue in the second half. LSU has had some big ones for the year. Obviously, Jacoby and Guillory at defensive tackle, Harold Perkins we mentioned. They're without John Emery, a running back for the season as well. They haven't had Chris Hilton, their supposed number 2 wide receiver, all year. He's not expected to play on Saturday. So they've got some bumps and bruises. But the season-ending wins are the headliners. I think LSU is fairly healthy for this one. They should get C.J. Daniels back at wide receiver, and this one he didn't play. They've moved a freshman 5-star, Trey Green, who's 6'7", 240, from tight end out to wide receiver, and he's been repping there because they were light on numbers. But Arkansas should definitely be the fresher team in this one. We'll see what that means for Taylor Green. But I think LSU is a little banged up, but they're functional.
Yeah. You know, you're talking about the pass rush of LSU, but you look at Nussmeier's numbers, and, you know, it's a number that I think Arkansas fans and some of the media focused on is 2 sacks is what's been given up on Nussmeier this year. What's been the secret to that? Is it line? Is it his escapability? Is it his mobility? What have you seen through their first half of the year?
LSU hadn't had a lineman taken in the first round since 1998 when Alan Faneca went in the first round. They'll have 2 in April. Both tackles will go in the first round of this draft, Will Campbell and Emory Jones, and it is not because they're great run blockers. They're average run blockers. They are elite pass blockers, and you've got fifth-year players at both guards in Miles Frazier and Garrett Dellinger who are really good in pass protection. Ole Miss came in to the game last week leading the country in sacks with 24. LSU dropped back to pass 56 times, and there was no sacks. It's just you're not going to consistently beat LSU rushing the passer. Now, the Tigers can't run the ball very well. They don't run block very well at all. But Garrett Nussmeier has time. He's very decisive. He makes quick throws. He's second in the SEC in terms of getting the ball out. Quinn Ewers is the only quarterback in the league that gets the ball out more quickly than Garrett Nussmeier. So the pass rush just doesn't affect LSU very much. South Carolina got a little bit of rush, and they've got probably 2 guys that are going to go in the first round rushing the passer, one in Kennard, who's going to go into this draft, and one in Stewart, who's a freshman. He has to wait 2 more years, but he was a 5-star, and he's 6'6" and a freak. But it's just very difficult to rush the passer on LSU because they're so veteran and so talented up front, and they've got an old quarterback. So the pass rush has not been an issue for LSU's offense.
You know, when you look at Ole Miss last week, Arkansas this week, A&M on the road next week. What's this 3-game stretch that's sandwiched between 2 bye dates? Does the balance of the season or your hope to get to the playoff ride on these 3 games, or how is the media and the fan base in Louisiana approaching this?
I think it's probably going to decide the outcome of the season, quite frankly, to your point. If LSU can find a way to beat Arkansas by 1 point, as ugly as it was 2 years ago, they got it done. If they can find a way to do that, they will go to College Station, I think, with kind of a free swing. That's going to be a really tough place to play as well, so will Fayetteville. But if they can win in Arkansas, even if they lose in College Station, they go to the bye, and still with 2 losses, I think you set up for a Saturday night in Tiger Stadium off a bye against Alabama in a home game that I think if you win, you've got a real good chance to make the playoff, because I think LSU can go to Gainesville and win. Who knows who the coach is going to be. As great as the story as Vanderbilt is, I don't love their chances in Tiger Stadium. And Oklahoma can't score. So I just don't know if they're going to be able to keep up with LSU in Tiger Stadium. So I think LSU, between at Arkansas, at Texas A&M, and Alabama, they need to get 2 of those. And that probably needs to start on Saturday.
We're talking with Hunt Palmer, 1 to 3 afternoons in Baton Rouge, 104.5 pre- and post games for LSU as well. Hunt, as you've kind of progressed throughout the week, you've looked at Arkansas, the personnel, you've seen what they've done this year. What is your feeling on this game tomorrow night?
I feel like it's a really good matchup for LSU. I think LSU's weakest link is the defensive secondary, and I don't know if Talon Green's perfectly equipped to exploit that. He certainly had a great day throwing the ball against Oklahoma State, but he's also had some clunky ones as well. And I think LSU is going to be able to move the ball a little bit. I like the matchup for LSU, but the spot for LSU is admittedly terrible. Arkansas is coming off a bye. There's a ton of confidence in that fan base and that program after the Tennessee win. LSU's coming down off that huge win at home. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere in Fayetteville. And we know the history of this rivalry. I mean, Arkansas has lost 17 in a row to Bama. They've lost 12 of 13 to Texas A&M. They've lost 9 of 12 to Auburn, but they play LSU tooth and nail every single year. And so while I love the matchup for LSU, I don't love the spot, and that leads me to believe it's probably going to be a one-possession game late into the night on Saturday.
Do you think it's because of just the high? Like, why does Arkansas play to LSU each year, as you mentioned, despite there being a talent gap most seasons?
That's impossible for me to answer. I could try to look up statistic after statistic. I did a segment on my show this week going over the amount of 5-stars and 4-stars LSU has signed and the amount of 5-stars and 4-stars that Arkansas has signed. I just rattled off all those records against the other teams that signed generally more 4- and 5-star players in what was the SEC West in Arkansas. And those teams don't seem to struggle with the Hogs more often than not. LSU absolutely does. I don't know if it means more to Arkansas. I don't know if it was because that game was right there after Alabama for a few years. Like, I don't know, but I do know that it's always close. And I think there are a lot of LSU fans that want to kind of take their 3 national championships in the last 20 years and their trips to Atlanta and kind of look down their nose at little old Arkansas. That's kind of a stupid thing to do because Arkansas plays LSU really, really tight every year, and I just don't expect that to change tomorrow.
Yeah, and when you look at Brian Kelly's record in close games versus Sam Pittman's record in close games, there's a pretty stark difference in the coaches' 2 records. Brian Kelly pulls off a lot of close wins in one-possession games. Is there anything that stands out to you as to why that may be?
Here's what I can say about Brian Kelly. Undeniably, his teams have improved over the course of every season. And you look at the team that his first game was in the Superdome against Florida State, they looked completely lost. And that team by November beat Bryce Young and Alabama and went to the SEC championship game. Last year they looked kind of clunky against Florida State in the opener as well, and by the end that offense was humming just as good as you possibly could. The defense never figured it out, but that offense was really, really scary. And this defense is undeniably far better than it was on Labor Day. So I think he's a good coach. I think he's got a really good staff. I think they're recruiting at an extremely high level and developing players. Brian Kelly's a good coach, but he's also got a lot of good players at his disposal. So it's a good thing, I guess, for LSU fans that he wins a lot of close games, because I think he'll be in one tomorrow.
Hunt, you going to be up here tomorrow? You stay in Baton Rouge?
I will be in Baton Rouge watching this one on TV. The network keeps me at home. I've traveled twice: the national championship game and then Florida State in the Superdome. We traveled, but the pre and post games originates from Baton Rouge every week. I wish I was there. Trust me, I think it's going to be an incredible environment.
Well, Hunt, we appreciate you making some time for us this morning. Good luck on your pre- and post-game tomorrow, your afternoon show later today, and we'll see if we have a dandy in Razorback Stadium tomorrow night.
I think we will. Y'all have a great weekend.
All right, again, that's Hunt Palmer, afternoons 1 to 3, 104.5 Baton Rouge pre- and post-game for the LSU Radio Network. And
BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.